Chapter 4. The Role of the Latin Vulgate, Part 3. Augustine described the problem that led to the production of the Vulgate. Quote, "In the earliest days of the faith, when a Greek manuscript came into anyone's hands, and he thought he possessed a little faculty in both languages, he ventured to make a transition in brackets into Latin." End of quote. As a consequence of such individual endeavor, Bruce says, quote, "The time came, however, when the multiplicity of Latin texts of Scripture became too inconvenient to be tolerated any longer, and Pope Damasus commissioned his secretary Jerome to undertake the work." End of quote. Of revision to produce one authorized Latin version. Bruce continues, quote, "He, in brackets the word Jerome, was told to be cautious for the sake of the weaker brethren who did not like to see their favorite texts tampered with even in the interest of greater accuracy. Even so, he went much too far for the taste of many, while he himself knew that he was not going far enough." Unger's Bible Dictionary comments. For many centuries it, in brackets the word Vulgate, was the only Bible generally used, ... In the age of the Reformation, the Vulgate, in brackets the word, influenced popular versions, period. That of Luther, NT, in 1523, was the most important, and in this the Vulgate had great weight, period. From Luther, the influence of the Latin passed to our own authorized version, in brackets the KJV, ... Saint Damasus 1. So I'm going to use Britannica for my source. I wish I had more sources, but it costs money to use their services, like access to their sources but even using Britannica, you have to pay for their services, which is fair, not against it. But so I will use this and share a little bit about Saint Damasus I, Pope. Born in 304 Rome, died December 11, 384. Okay, Rome. Feast day is December 11th. Pope from October 1st, 366 to December 11th, 384. So he died as a pope, I believe. During his rule, the primacy of the Rome see was asserted. So that's the image of him. Okay. Damasus was a deacon during the reign of his predecessor, Pope Librius. Let's go to Librius. Died September 24th, 366, in Rome. Pope from 352 to 366. He was elected on May 17, 352, to succeed Pope Saint Julius I. Okay. Librius was a pope during the turbulence caused by the rise of Arianism. See, I won't be able to access the whole thing, but some things. Jesus before the gates of Jerusalem. Okay. Arianism in Christianity, the Christological concerning the doctrine of Christ, position that Jesus as the Son of God was created by God. It was proposed early in the 4th century by the Alexandrian presbyter Arius and was popular throughout much of the Eastern and Western Roman empires. Even after it was denounced as a heresy by the Council of Nicaea 325, Arianism is often considered to be a form of Unitarian theology in that it stresses God's unity at the expense of the notion of the Trinity, the doctrine that three distinct persons are united in one Godhead. So, ends there because, see, subscribe, purchase. A heresy, teaching that Christ was not truly divine but rather a created being. Liberius was pope under the Iranian Roman Empire Constantine II, who opposed both the Council of Nicaea, which had condemned Arianism, and Bishop Saint Athanasius of Alexandria, who was Arianism's most virulent opponent. Liberius' first act as a pope was to write Constantine's request a council at Aquileia, if I'm saying that right, Italy, to discuss Athanasius. But the emperor independently effected Athanasius' condemnation. In 355, Liberius was one of the few bishops who refused to sign the condemnation. Okay, that's good. Which had been imposed at Milan by imperial command upon all the Western bishops. Consequently, Constantinus exiled Liberius to Beroea, modern Veroia, Greece, and the Iranian Archdeacon Felix to appropriated the papacy. And papacy, I believe, is Pope, the office and jurisdictions of the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Okay, let's go back. Keep going. Where are we? In late 357, Liberius went to Sirmium. Supposedly dejected, he agreed to sign certain unorthodox formulas that served to emasculate the Nicene Creed. The creed had implicitly disavowed Arianism. Liberius also agreed to sever relationships with Anthias and submitted to the authority of the emperor. Let me read that sentence again. So, Liberius also agreed to sever relationships with Athanasius and submitted to the authority of the emperor. Okay. But Constantinus recalled him to Rome, where he returned in 358, joyfully received by the Roman Christians. Felix fled to Porto, Italy, but Constantinus decreed that Felix and Liberius should co-rule. And what does that mean? Oh, co-rule. Is that what I'm... Co-rule, but it's not a word. Co-rule. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Someone who rules with another. They changed the website. Okay. Is there even such a thing as word history? Okay. Co-ruler, but that's co-ruler. Okay, let's leave it alone. Felix fled to Porto, Italy, but Constantius decreed that Felix and Liberius should co-rule. Although this imperial order was disregarded, Liberius' prestige was impaired. Neither he nor Felix was invited to the great council that met at Rimini, Italy in 359 to terminate the Iranian crisis. This temporary humiliation prevented the papacy's involvement in the council's capitulation to imperial despotism and in its compromise with heresy. After Constantius' death in 361, Liberius annulled the decrees of Rimini. In 362, with his authority renewed, he received some Eastern bishops and had them profess the Nicene faith and anathematized the formulary of Rimini. The curious phenomenon of the papacy's double occupation ended when Felix died in 365. And what does this mean? No.
Anathematize.
Anathematize. Anathematize. To criticize someone or something strongly or say that he, she, or it is completely unacceptable. Okay, let's read that definition again. To criticize someone or something strongly or say that he, she, or it is completely unacceptable. Anathematize the formulary of Rimini. The curious phenomenon of the papacy's double occupation ended when Felix died in 365. Okay, let's go back. Okay. Damasus was a deacon during the reign of his predecessor, Pope Liberius, and accompanied him when Liberius was exiled by the Roman Emperor Constantius for his opposition to Arianism, a belief that denied Christ's divinity. Okay. Later, however, Damasus returned to Rome and acknowledged anti-Pope Felix II, a pro-Iranian placed on the papal throne by the emperor. Why would he acknowledge Felix II? Okay, let's see what he looks like. Felix II died November 22nd, 365. Porter near Rome, anti-pope from 355 to 365. Originally an archdeacon, Felix was irregularly installed as pope in 355 after the emperor Constantius banished the reigning pope Liberius. In May 357, the Roman laity, which had remained faithful to Liberius, demanded that Constantius recall the true pope. Constantinus, how do you pronounce this word? Okay, so I have to go. I'll leave it there. Recall the true pope. The emperor planned to have Felix and Liberius rule jointly. but Felix was forced to retire to Porto when Liberius returned. Resented by the Romans while alive, he was remembered more kindly after his death. He has been erroneously called saint after an error in the Roman martyrology that was based on spurious documents. The martyrology gave July 29th as his feast day, but he is now officially listed as an anti-pope in the Annuarii Pontificio. Okay. Later, however, Damasus returned to Rome and acknowledged anti-Pope Felix II, a pro-Iranian placed on the papal throne by the emperor. After Felix's death in November 22nd, 365, Damasus became reconciled with Liberius, but the enemies he made during this period of shifting allegiance troubled his entire pontificate. The election of Damasus as pope was immediately challenged by a minority who supported a rival claimant. See that word too. So many new words for me. Claimant. Okay. And a person who asks for something that they believe belongs to them or that they have a right to. Okay. A person or a company that requests or receives payment from an insurance company for an accident, illness, damage to property, etc. A person who requests or receives payment of money that a government, organization, or company owes them. A person who goes to court to make a legal complaint against someone else. Someone who demands the right to be the legal owner of a particular property, payment, or title. Okay, let's read it again. Claimant. A person who asks for something that they believe belongs to them or that they have a right to. Okay, so reading that sentence again. The election of Damasus as pope was immediately challenged by a minority who supported a rival claimant, Eurycnes. And who is this? So he's also an anti-pope. After Pope Liberius' death on September 24, 366, two Roman deacons, Eurycnes and Saint Damasus I, were simultaneously elected as successors. The small, powerful faction supporting Eurycnes gathered in the Basilica Julia in Rome, where he was apparently consecrated on September 24th. Okay, let's go back. The civil authority sided with Damasus, and Eurycnes and his partisans were banished. Okay. Damasus was actively in suppressing heresy and promoting the primacy of Rome. In two synods, the unorthodox teaching of Bishop Macedonius of Constantinople and of Bishop Apollinarius the Younger of Laodicea were condemned. Among Damasus' literally remains are 24 anathemas against various 4th century heresies. What is this word? Anathema from Greek, to set up or to dedicate. In the Old Testament, a creature or object set apart for sacrificial offerings. Its reported to profane use was strictly banned, and such objects destined for destruction thus became effectively accursed as well as consecrated. Old Testament description of religious wars call both the enemy and the besieged city anathema, inasmuch as they were destined for destruction. Okay, let's practice pronunciation. Oopsie, I didn't copy it. Thought I did.
Anathema. Anathema.
Anathema. Something that is strongly disliked or disapproved of. Something that is considered completely wrong and offensive. Okay. Old Testament descriptions of religious wars call both the enemy and their besieged city anathema, inasmuch as they were destined for destruction. In New Testament usage, a different meaning developed. St. Paul used the word anathema to signify a curse and the forced expulsion of one from the community of Christians. In AD 431, St. Cyril of Alexandria pronounced his 12 anathemas against the heretics Nestorius. Okay. So reading here, among Damas's literally remains are 24 anathemas against various 4th century heresies. With a view to the elimination of Arianism in the East, he entered into lengthy negotiations with Saint Basil, who as Bishop of Caesarea was head of the church throughout most of Anatolia, Turkey. Their dealings were not a success. Though united against Arianism, they failed to agree on policy. Damasus was the first pope to refer to Rome as the apostolic see, to distinguish it as that established by the apostle Saint Peter, founder of the church. In 380, the emperors Gratian in the west and Theodosius in the east declared Christianity as preached by Peter to be the religion of the Roman Empire and defined orthodoxy as the doctrines proclaimed by the bishops of Rome and Alexandria. Rome's primacy was officially pronounced by a synod called in Rome in 382 by Damasus, who was perhaps weary of the growing strength of Constantinople, which was already claiming to be the new Rome. Saint Jerome attended the synod and stayed on to become Damasus' secretary, close advisor, and friend. Damasus commissioned him to revise the Latin translation of the Bible for what subsequently became known as the Vulgate. Latin was introduced as the language of the Mass during Damasus' long pontificate. He was notable also for his work in discovering the tombs of martyrs, for which he wrote many verse inscriptions and was responsible for the restoration of Rome's catacombs. Damasus was an active builder and restorer of churches. Okay. And the last sentence was, right, just like where we read here. Pope Damasus, commissioned his secretary Jerome to undertake the work of revision to produce an produce one authorized Latin version. Is that the same thing I just read? Damasus. No, it's not. Okay. Okay. No, it's not there. But let's read the last thing. Bruce continues, quote, he, in brackets, the word Jerome, was told to be cautious for the sake of the weaker brethren who did not like to see their favorite text tampered with even in the interest of greater accuracy. Even so, he went much too far for the taste of many, while he himself knew that he was not going far enough. Unger's Bible Dictionary comments.